Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So last week we started talking about the pillars of Islam, and we looked at them from two perspectives. One was the perspective that the pillars are extremely important for us to build a structure, a building. We cannot have a building without pillars. On the same time, we also need to remember that just pillars itself, they are not of any use unless a structure is built upon them. So, the pillars of Islam are in the same manner that they provide us support to build two things. You know, we have been talking about the objectives, the individual objectives and collective objectives as a community. So, individually, the pillars provide us a structure to build our personality of excellence which Islam wants us to build and adopt. And collectively, they provide us the structure on which we can build our united community. So that was one perspective, and the second perspective was that these pillars provide us a system, and every system works only when all parts are there and they are working in harmony. And the system has an objective or a purpose. Unless that purpose is served, the machine, the tool, the system is not useful. So we need to remember what are the important objectives which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to achieve through these pillars. And from that perspective, we took the example of a car. We have a car that because the objective is that it takes us from point A to point B, to our destination. And for that purpose, if we want to reach the destination safely, we have to follow certain rules. And also, we need to maintain the car. So there are three things needed. One is the car has to be, we have to have a car. It should be driven according to some rules, and it has a maintenance which is required, and we need to do that. And then the objective is to take us from our starting point to our destination. So from that perspective, we looked at Salah, and we talked about, so what is the destination? And the destination in this case was we discussed from the verses of Holy Quran that the destination Allah has given, what Allah wants us to achieve, that individually, from our individual objectives, it is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can obey Him and with humility and love. Okay? And also, when we are standing for Salah, we recite Surah Fatiha, and in Surah Fatiha, we renew our covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what is the covenant? That, Ya Allah, only you we are going to obey unconditionally, readily, enthusiastically, humbly, and only you we are going to seek for help. Okay? And so that is our individual objective, which is, remember that we talked about earlier, that individually Allah wants us to do our tazkiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to become better people, so that we pursue excellence in our life, we become the most excellent human being which is possible, and to remove all our shortcomings and to grow in our virtues. So this is the tazkiyah objective. But then there is a collective objective, as a community, and as a collective objective is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to have a well-organized social and political system which is, Salah helps us to, through the bil Jama'ah, when we come for Salatul Jama'ah, individual objective of Tazkiyah we can achieve even when we are praying at home. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that this Salah in Jama'ah in the masjid has 25 or 27 or 29 times reward when we come and do the Salah, because that's how we achieve our collective objective, that to become a strong, effective community which is united, which works in unison together under the leadership of the Imam, and all those things which we talked about last week. So, what are the rules? So those are the objectives. So what are the rules? The rules are the fiqh of Salah, that we know that to acceptable the Salah has to be done according to rules of fiqh. And then maintenance is that we learn more surahs, so we can recite in the Salah, we learn all the dua and all those kind of things, and those are things. So you can see that how the first pillar of Islam, like first pillar is Shahada, but the second pillar of Islam, Salah, helps us achieve our individual as well as our collective objective as an ummah. And the second pillar is zakah, and zakah, a lot of times in Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands salah and zakah together. And there is a very important aspect we need to reflect upon that from that perspective. But just quickly, that Allah has commanded 29 times for us to pay zakah, and 26 times is along with salah. Waqimus salata wa atuz zakah, that establish salah and pay zakah. And so if we takes the same approach, what is the tazkiyah part, the individual objective we want to achieve is that number one, it purifies our wealth. That whatever Allah has given us, a portion of that belongs to the have-nots of the society, the people who don't have, or they don't enjoy the same level of our standard of living as we have. So we have to share that wealth with them. So when we pay zakah, we are purifying our wealth, our resources, our finances, that okay, we can use them after we have paid whatever belongs to, in our wealth, belongs to the Islamic State and the poor people of the society. Also, it purifies our mentality, our psyche from the love of wealth. Because, lot of crimes are committed in the society because people love wealth so much and they want to get it one way or the other, whether if it's people resort to illegal, immoral things just to increase their wealth. But this giving zakah helps us purify our hearts from the love of the wealth. We can, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we give it away, making us ready to make any sacrifices for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and curtails our love for the wealth. So that's, then it inculcates sense of responsibility to the society. So these are the personal objectives. As the collective objectives of the community, that becomes the fiscal system of Islamic society. Just like Salah becomes the pillar which helps us establish the social and political system of the society, zakah helps us uh, establish the fiscal system of the society. And just like the oil in the car reduces the friction and oils the engine so it doesn't heat up and burn. In the same manner, zakah plays that role when the needs of the poor people are taken care of, the needs of the government and the fiscal system are taken care of, the society runs smoothly, and social justice is there. And remember when we were talking about tazkiyah, it is the same word which is where zakah comes from, and it means both purification and growth. The tazkiyah or zakah means both purification and growth. So purification we have talked about. The growth is that when we spend zakah, it goes into the hands of the people. They spend in the economy grows, economy flourishes. Also, the goodwill among people grows. So these are some of the objectives which Allah wants us to achieve through zakah. So, as you can see, that through salah and zakah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us two important pillars to establish a successful society. Social and political system is built around the Salatul Jama'ah, and the fiscal system of the society is built based upon zakah. So this is briefly the roles of the pillars. And as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that if we know the objectives, then we can see, are we achieving the objectives from the actions we are taking or not? Because if we are not achieving the objectives, it means there is something missing, which we need to pay attention to. And I gave you the example last week about when I was giving the example of the car, that let's say that we have an excellent car, we maintain it very well, it's always clean and everything, oil and everything taken care of, maintenance taken care of, and we drive following the traffic laws perfectly, we follow all the rules which are applicable, but we don't know where we are going. We don't have a clear objective. We don't know where we are going, so we can drive all day, following the rules of the road and doing things, but we won't arrive anywhere because we don't know where we are going. So that's why we need to understand the objectives of the pillars of Islam, objectives of the Islamic system of Salah and Zakah, so that we see where we are going. Because if we know our destination, if we know where we want to reach, even our following the rule is not very perfect, even then we will reach it. Although rules are there to take us safely to our destination. But if there is some weakness in our rules, following of the rules, we can still reach there. But if we don't know where we are going, doesn't matter how precisely and minutely we follow the rules, we are not going to get anywhere. And if you look at our ummah nowadays, what happens? We have a lot of attention to all the rules of fiqh. But how many times we remember the objectives which Allah wants us to achieve? So we need to remind ourselves of these objectives, so we can see that if our following the rules and doing the action which Allah wants us to take action, are we achieving the goals and objectives or we are not? Because if we are not achieving those goals which Allah wants us to achieve, then we want to see what is lacking in our actions. So that's the reason we are looking at it from that perspective. So I will just stop here briefly. And what we need to remind ourselves again, that we started coming together on Sunday mornings because the objectives we have is that we want to become a strong, united, effective, influential community in this part of the world, so that when any part of our ummah, anywhere in the world, if they are mistreated, if they are uh, persecuted, if something wrong is done to them, if injustice happens to them, then we can stand up for them. And when we stand up and we talk for them, we are our uh, our words are listened to, they are given importance, they become, and that can happen only when become a strong ummah here. So that is the purpose. We had made few teams to work on various objectives, and every Sunday we want to come and remind ourselves of those objectives and continue working on it. And as I've been saying, that we just use the example of a machine. Let's say, take any machine, for example, our car or this iPad or this laptop or anything else. If the whole system is not together and assembled in the way it should be assembled, and doesn't have the firmware and the software and whatever is needed is there, can the system work? No. Unless all the system parts are there and they work together, we cannot have a system working. Allah wants us to be a united ummah, united community, and for that purpose, all the parts have to be there and they have to be assembled in a proper manner. Last week I gave you the example of the brick wall. If we live as individual Muslims, we are just like scattered bricks. They are not much useful. They are useful only when they are properly, one by one, put with mortar and we build a structure. Our ummah will not be united, our ummah will not become a proper ummah and community unless and until we become in the same manner, working together. As I mentioned, that Salah provides us the appropriate structure to do that. But if we just come and do Salah and leave, we are not going to build the community. The community is going to be built only when we interact, we work together, we achieve goals, and we review how we are achieving our objectives, and then, inshallah, the fruits will be, we will be reaping the fruits, and our ummah and unity will be taking place. But for that purpose, we have to reach out to more people, and so they come and participate and attend. So I have requested Brother Raid to give us his perspective of how we can become a strong ummah. So he will talk now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ayub. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasul al-Nabi al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brother Ayub approached me yesterday. We had an event, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, at ISNA yesterday, and I spoke at the event, and he approached me and he said maybe we can say something about it. Brothers and sisters in Islam, the suffering that Brother Ayub talked about around the world, the Muslim Ummah, not only in Gaza right now, the millions upon millions upon millions in Palestine, in Palestine, and the majority of the Muslim Ummah around the world, they're being subjected to all forms of violence, oppression, and injustice. And subhanAllah, when we think about it generally, we start immediately with the politics, with countries against countries, with people hating this and that. And there's a very important element that we undermine or sometimes ignore. A big part of what's really happening to the Muslim Ummah around the world can be attributed directly to what the media says or does not even say about the Muslims, about